Okay, we need to confirm the agenda. Deputy Reeve Campbell and Councillor Hellhand seconds. All in favor? Carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interest, if any. Okay. Moving through to the consent agenda. Do we do these two first? That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby adopts consent items, item 4.1.1, and further that all other consent items, save and except for check 502314 of the item 4.21, be received for information. Do I have a motion for that? Or is there points that people want to draw out? Okay.
4.3.5 is an annual policy update regarding the guidance for municipalities on establishing traditional and land acknowledgement statements that would be given at the opening of all meetings to recognize the need for the recognition of Indigenous owners of the land before we Europeans came. And I would like to recommend that staff give some thought to this and come up with a traditional statement that we could use at the beginning of our meetings for this recognition. I think it's something that we might be able to do in concert with other municipalities, because we really should do some research on what were the Indigenous groupings of people who passed through here or lived here in the ancient times, and come up with something that gives honor and helps with the process of recognizing our beginnings. I'd like to make that a motion.
Is there a seconder?
Second.
Councillor Syke. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion? Carried. Okay. Oh, okay. Is there any other points councillors want brought forward from the consent agenda? Okay. Do I have a mover? Councillor Vauden, Deputy Reeve Campbell. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Okay. And a motion that, okay.
Sorry, Reeve, I did miss
You're going to say
the declaration that that check 502314 is actually to my spouse, who's a part-time employee of the daycare. So want to make sure that I mention that in the declaration.
Okay.
Of pecuniary interest, please.
thank you. Okay. Having that, do we have a motion for that check?
Repeat, do you want to speak to that? What you've been researching doing?
Sure. So
Okay. Go ahead, Richard.
there has been some discussion around whether or not this would be an item that Councillor Slight should declare as a pecuniary interest, and according to what we're seeing, at this point it's probably safest to do so. There's the wording of the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act refers to a pecuniary interest being a negative or a positive monetary interest. So In this case, if that was not approved and did not come back, that could be, you could consider that a negative, right? So that's what we found so far in terms of whether or not that would be a pecuniary interest. And so there are things that the staff are looking at, though, ways of using, say, the township credit card for these sorts of purchases. And then having to have staff use their own personal cards and then reimburse or whatever payment method that they're using. So that way, that would eliminate the need for Tiffany to do that sort of thing.
Listen, I'm more than happy to continue to declare it if that is the case, or if it's easier to do another way. I really don't care. I think I think in the idea of this idea, down there has been the past practice that staff has done this. So I'm not sure it's the past practice in all departments, but I know in the daycare field that has what North Huron's not new at this. All daycares, municipally owned or privately owned, have done this certain thing. We just have this obligation, and I have this obligation, the fact that she is my spouse and she works, that I have to declare it. So whatever staff and determine is the best course of action, if it doesn't change, I will continue to declare it. If it changes, then, and I don't have to, great, whatever.
Mover. Councillor Vladden, Deputy Reeve Campbell. All in favor? Carried. Okay. That's already in the next section. Okay. Doesn't look like we have any delegations tonight, so going into the reports from the Clerk's Department, 6.1.1, the OSM Conference registrations.
Thank you, Reeve Vincent. So the first report tonight is about the OSM conference, and as council may recall, on February 20th, there was a resolution passed that council would support the OSM conference and commit to sending a minimum of 2 council representatives to that conference annually. So the registration information was sent out, and a few councillors did reply back. But again, we have to refer back to Bylaw 3/2010 that reads that council members shall be permitted to attend 1 conference convention per year. Council members may attend additional conferences / conventions, providing the request is approved by a resolution of council. So we had interest expressed by Reeve Vincent, Councillor Ritzman-Taninga, and Councillor Knott, although he was unsure about his schedule. So, and then also just recently, Councillor Hallahan as well. So, with that, Reeve Vincent has attended some conferences, but some of those are paid for by the county. So, I think I won't speak for him on his intents for OSM, but if Councillor Ritzman-Taninga was going to go, we needed a motion to support that. Councillor Hallahan hasn't attended a conference yet in 2018, so he could potentially go with, this would be his first conference, and there would be no motion needed. But I'll kind of open it up to whatever council thinks. Vincent?
Okay, and so that if Councillor Knott went to OSM, that we would need a motion allowing him to go to AMO as well, and that Councillor Ritzman-Taninga has went to Roma, is wanting to go to AMO, and this, so that would actually be a 3rd conference for her. what is council's pleasure on that? And Bill, can you say whether you would want a motion passed by council to allow you to do a second conference or not?
My offer for that motion was simply as a backup if required, if nobody couldn't
Okay.
fulfill the two. So if you now have interest also from another counselor, I think you probably have enough to cover that. So
Okay.
mine was just to allow, if I could attend, to make sure we fulfilled our obligation, that was all.
Thank you very much for that, and thank you for the clarification. Okay, what is council's thoughts on whether or not to support a third conference for Councillor Ritzman-Tenenga? Councillor Singh.
Well, if Councillor Hallahan would like to go to OSUM, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't send him. And then we wouldn't need a motion of council. It's would be his only conference. We've already provided the motion for AMO for Ritzman-Tenenga last meeting, I believe. So to me, if we do that, then the motions are as they are, and we just carry on. Because we did the motion last meeting to allow Ritzman-Tenenga to vote to register for AMO. Because that would be her second conference.
Yes.
And then, in my mind, because we've got a counselor who is not registered and not went on a conference, that's the one I would support going to. Not that I would not support Councillor Ritzman-Tenenga going. I just think it makes sense that if somebody hasn't got a conference like Councillor Hallahan, then and he would like to go, I think we should send him.
Okay, the thing of it is the third conference. We passed the motion for AMO as a second conference, and that it was naming it as the second, so that if we pass for her to be registered and go to OSUM as well, I believe we should have another motion for that.
Right, but what I'm saying is you wouldn't need that if Councillor Hallahan is willing to go to OSUM, because then that would remove the fact that Councillor Ritzman-Tenenga wouldn't go.
Referring back to the 2010, that bylaw that hasn't been repealed, I believe that permission for anything over one is required from council. Richard?
Councillor Slipe, are you suggesting that Councillor Ritzman-Tenenga wouldn't go to OSUM at all?
That is
Yes.
correct.
Oh,
That's what
Okay.
I'm saying.
okay, sorry.
I'm saying,
didn't-
yes, that's what I'm saying, is we
Yeah.
take Ritzman-Tenenga off and put Ray on.
Okay, sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Thank you for being gracious on this. Okay. That, okay, and for me, I will be putting the OSUM conference through on the county budget for my conferences, so that that's why I don't need it for going to a second conference.
Thank you, County.
Okay.
So if, based on that direction, just the motion here is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receive the March 19th, 2018 report of the clerk/manager of IT for information purposes, and further that direction is provided to staff regarding how council would like to proceed with the registrations which received.
I'll move it.
Councillor Singh, Deputy Reeve Campbell, all in favor? Thank you. Carried. Okay, 6.12. This involves a lot of stuff. Bylaws for consideration, March 2018. Richard, I'll let you go over some stuff.
So, yes, a lot of bylaws here. You'll notice that a number of them I'm requesting that that an exception be granted to section 19.1 of the procedural bylaw. And the reason is because they are more or less housekeeping bylaws. So previously, to give you some background, there had been one bylaw passed annually that appointed a number of roles. One was the treasurer, one was the deputy treasurer, the municipal auditor, and things like that. The problem with having one bylaw like that does all of that is it gets outdated quickly, and then whenever someone changes roles, and then you're constantly opening up that one bylaw. So to address that, the idea here is that we get away from that annual bylaw and instead appoint individuals by their own bylaw. So if, for instance, a position changes, then that person, the new individual, is appointed into that position, and only that bylaw is effective then. So the bylaws, which of course come much later in the agenda, there's a number of them here that are housekeeping items. For instance, the appointing a treasurer, a deputy treasurer, lottery license officials, the municipal auditor, and the 2 deputy chiefs. So those ones are, and the municipal weed inspector. So those ones are housekeeping items to take care of the annual appointment bylaw. The other ones included in this report include the just a quick recap of the licensing bylaw that was discussed at the previous meeting. There's a bylaw to amend the fees and charges bylaw by adding a schedule for the licensing fees. There is a bylaw to sign an agreement, to authorize the signing of an agreement between the Township of North Huron and the Owen Sound Police Services Board for fire dispatch. And that agreement is due for renewal. So that's there is a bit of urgency on that one. And as well, it came to our attention that there was an agreement for eScribe that needs to be a formal agreement that needs to be signed. So that one's on there as well, and it was more of a housekeeping item as well, just because we've already been using eScribe for around 2 years now, and there's nothing in the agreement that's out of the ordinary with that one. So I think that about covers all of them. They'll be all found at the end of the agenda, unless anyone has any questions.
Okay, do I have a mover to receive that for information? Councillor Knott, Councillor Hallahan. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Okay, 6.1.3. Note of request for a drain improvement, namely the Scott Municipal Drain. Richard?
Thanks again. So this particular report is regarding the Scott Municipal Drain. There's been a petition received regarding this particular drain for improvements under Section 78. And under that section, if council selects to approve and proceed with the drainage works, the next step would be to send the notice to Maitland Valley Conservation Authority, OMAFRA, and the parties who requested the improvement under Section 78. And then there's a 30-day waiting period before an engineer can be appointed. So the drainage superintendent, Kirk Livingston, myself met with Jeff King 2 Fridays ago, sorry. And so he gave us a bit of details on this item. It's been in the works for a while, apparently. And he did mention as well that there are that Maitland Valley has received a grant from Bruce Power for improving fisheries that applies to this drain. And so the cost for this particular drain improvement, he guesses will be minimal on the landowners. So
this will finish that drain. After all these years that we've worked on this is the final connection to the Belgrave Creek.
Okay. Motion to proceed as Richard stated with the notifications. If we're in favor, Councillor Knott, Councillor Hallahan. Any further? All in favor? Carried. Okay, thank you. Looks like finance and recreation get off easy tonight. Okay, moving to public works. 6.4.1, proposed curbside collection contract amendment. Do you want to just answer questions, or have you got comments you'd like to put in?
Whatever you prefer, revisit, I'm prepared to speak to it, or we can just take questions.
Councillor Vaughn.
I think it sounds like a very good arrangement, that they're willing to adjust things in midstream. I think that's a great opportunity.
Is that enough for council? Councillor
I'll
Vaughn.
move,
Thank you. Seconder. Councillor Knott. All in favor? Carried. Okay. The 6.4.2, the proposed clothing policy amendments. Sean, you want to
Yes, thank
comment?
you. This might be a little bigger. We were asked to look at the clothing policy. There was some concerns expressed with the manner with which it was structured. A team was put together internally, consisting of Pat Newsom, Valerie Watson, and myself. And what we set out to do was, after consultation with our CAOs, to develop a proposed policy that would speak to clothing requirements under occupational health, operational needs specifically associated with the municipality, and to ensure that that funds were appropriately being allocated to those areas. So what you see before you in terms of a proposed clothing policy amendment basically looks at a number of areas. It looks at PPE, it looks at safety workwear, it speaks to uniforms, and then personal clothing and footwear. Basically what the policy is saying is that department heads will look at PPE and safety workwear as required under the Occupational Health and Safety Act. So we're in essence, I don't want to say pulling it out of the policy, but we're pointing the policy at the act to make sure that the employees are adequately and appropriately provided for. It speaks to footwear, again, with a focus on the act. I'll jump to footwear right off the pin. Basically, the only amendment that is proposed is a change in the allowance from the $100 that's currently in the proposal up to $125, and beyond that, that there would be consideration for part-time employees, specifically that a part-time employee would be provided on their first year of employment with the municipality, with the township, the access to the same allotment. It would, however, only apply for a 2-year period. So instead of annually, we provide them with those funds, it would be every second year. So for your returning seasonal, part-time, and students, they would only be able to access that on the 3rd year of returning. Now, beyond that, we speak in this proposal to uniforms and branding. And the purpose for that, we thought it was important to clarify that there are occasions and circumstances where you want to be able to clearly identify a municipal employee. So if our township employees are working interspersed with the general public, If they're at an event or something like that where you would want them to be readily identified, then at the department head's discretion, they can be required to wear a uniform. We didn't apply uniforms to circumstances where they would be, where an employee is working in a easily identified township location. Case in point, front desk at town hall. You know that the person behind the glass is an employee, and for that reason, there's no real compulsion to require a uniform. So basically, again, it allows the department head to identify those circumstances and times where a uniform would be appropriate and timely, and to budget accordingly. So where council would see those numbers would be in the budget, and it's during that budget process, there is the line item that would provide opportunity for questions from council. Now, the final piece was personal clothing, and basically we cited the existing policy stating business casual is the requirement. There is already guidelines speaking to the requirements of an employee, and basically it ended at that. Under very specific circumstances, the CAO would have the opportunity to step outside of this policy, and provide some compensation, but it would have to be an extenuating circumstance. So what you see here is what we tried to achieve was a clothing policy that tended to the needs of the township, ensured occupational health and safety was covered, but at the end of the year, it eliminates that generation of rebate checks back for unexpended funds.
Deputy Reeve Campbell?
Reeve to Sean, what about the fellows that work at the landfill? They're part-time, are they not? They're not full-time people. Their safety equipment would be supplied.
Again,
Safety boots and vests and stuff like that to identify them.
that's correct. Through you, again, it falls under occupational health and safety.
Yes.
We have one full-time individual who would access the footwear policy annually. We have a part-time individual that would access the footwear policy every second year.
Councillor Knott?
Just to curious up to Sean, is it 125 or 150 raised the footwear to?
125.
Because it states 150 in the bottom of your policy sheet.
Oh, well, my apologies, and that was, we worked with a bunch of figures to try to find the best fit. And I'm sorry, 150 was something we were working with.
Yeah. Paragraph F there on page 3, it states 150, so. That's under your proposed clothing policy.
Okay, no, that can definitely be, or will definitely be amended because, okay, it's embedded under footwear, yes. Good catch, and I do apologize for that. So as I said, we ran a number of scenarios to make sure that we were exercising fiscal responsibility here. The idea wasn't for costs to go up. When we looked at the balance, we found that at 125, it was fair. We actually looked at the dollar appreciation since 2009 and looked at the market.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm going to make a motion that we accept.
Okay. Councillor Syed, seconds.
That's pretty great.
All in favor?
Now we give somebody else.
Carried. Okay.
In fact, just for the benefit of the council, there's a lot of discussions around this policy. So I commend the staff in terms of they looked at it from many different angles, so kudos to them.
That's because Dwayne said find one policy that fits all. It was good practice.
One policy fits all, but there might be a lot of complaints.
Not now, cut it down, we're good.
Good, thank you. Okay, moving on to correspondence. 7.1, Richard, do you want to read about the public meeting concerning a proposed zoning bylaw amendment affecting the municipality of Morris Turnbull?
Sure. So we've received a notice from the municipality of Morris Turnbull regarding a proposed zoning bylaw amendment, and it's in Belgrave. And unless council has any comments or concerns with that, the proposed motion would be that the Council of the Township of North Huron have reviewed and have no concerns regarding the proposed zoning bylaw amendment received March 15th, 2018 to rezone Plan 162, Part Lot 71, Belgrave, as submitted by the municipality of Morris Pingree.
Okay. Do all council members know for sure where that is?
I'm not exactly sure.
Okay, that's for the new housing being put on the lot that, like it was to be split 4 ways that the Township of Morris had bought for a possible fire hall.
Okay. Yes.
I believe it's a good use of the property. Okay. Motion, Councillor Hallahan, Deputy Reeve Campbell, all in favor? Carried. Okay. Okay. The Reeves activity report. Well, it's easy to tell that it's an election year. Social media, I understand. While I personally do not read a lot of social media, but I've been getting a lot second and third hand. So I will say, I believe that there's a lot of articles in social media that are not based on sound fact. By a number of the things that have been printed, what I am advising, and I'm starting to get a number of telephone calls over it. Please, if you think that there's an individual on our council that maybe has said the wrong thing or attributed to saying certain things, please check with those individuals that are involved with our council to make sure you have the true interpretation of what their views are. It's just, pardon me, a number of them are laughable when you know the people that the comments are attributed to. But somebody that was unaware of who we are, what our personalities are like and stuff. Some of them may believe it, but so that for councillors, be aware that there is information floating that we do not have any control over, but I think it's noteworthy to say that as a council, we know it's out there and that it's one of those things that happens, I guess, in an election year when people want to make comments. And I think that is one of the big things since the last council meeting, that a number of people have approached me and informed me of certain things that have been in social media, so that councillors be ready to be taken back when you are accused of making some kind of statement that you never did. I'll leave it at that. Thank you. Is there any council members that want to make reports or on boards or things that have been coming forward? Deputy Reeve Campbell.
I was at a retirement party for Bill Burkholder from the Blythe Fire Department for 40 years of service last week, and it was a good occasion to be there to help him celebrate that.
Councillor Syed?
I don't know what the policy is of the municipality, but, you know, for those types of years of service, some certificate of appreciation or something to that effect, you know, I'm assuming something was provided at that night, but I don't know. If it wasn't, I think we should do it on behalf of council, send something of an appreciation.
I believe that can be manufactured.
So if you
you're
need
making that a motion?
I will make it a motion if it needs to be.
Deputy Reeve Campbell, seconding it. All in favor? Carried. Units, certainly. Okay, moving to 9, notice of motion. I believe Councillor Lawden has one.
Yes, I have.
Oh, just a sec. Councillor Knott.
I'm going to assume that we can do it at this portion, but I just wanted to make a comment further to your comments earlier. That was all. With regard to the what we call social media or fake news outlets that are publishing comments that are being attributed to individuals on council or wherever they are. And quite frankly, I mean, I have no problem admitting that they have attributed some of this to me, none of which I've written. And yes, some of it is amusing, but I do find that sometimes there are people who are too easily misled or believe that sometimes these comments are real. And I have received a number of emails asking me to clarify these. Unfortunately, when I look at them, I've found too many of them are fake, and I would urge anybody that has a question to please contact myself or whoever you think it may be. But when you do, that they contact with a name, a proper name, your address, and a phone number that can verify your identity. Because out of 5 emails I checked the other day, only one of them I would consider to be legitimate. The other 4 were actually fake, and we were just fishing for more rubbish. So anybody that wishes to correspond, feel free. I'd be more than happy to answer their questions, but please identify yourselves properly. I'm going to send them all that have, just for fun, I will send a note to all of them requesting them to reapply their emails properly. And good luck. It's going to be a long road to the election if this, I guess they're reading too many things about the Russians manipulating the American elections. We have some local guys who think they can now accomplish the same thing. However, Mr. Putin still got elected with 77% of the vote, so.
Okay, proceed, Paul.
Okay. I intend to present this motion at the first regular council meeting on April 3rd, 2018. Whereas the former Village of Blythe had a snow removal policy of ensuring full access to downtown places of business for every business day, and whereas this policy was maintained for the Blythe Ward for several years after amalgamation of North Huron, and whereas the present snow removal policy of scheduled snow removal results in as many as 3 days a week in which passengers, people with mobility issues, and others are unable to gain reasonable access to the stores and offices which they need to visit. Therefore, I'm resolving that staff are requested to prepare a report regarding the Blythe Ward snow removal policy, addressing access to stores and offices for all business days by eliminating the snowbanks along the curbs and sidewalks and at the intersection prior to the beginning of each business day. And I'm signing that and presenting it to our clerk.
So we'll bring this back for discussion at the next.
Okay. Okay, moving forward into bylaws. 10.1, bylaw number 16, 2018. Being a bylaw to delegate certain authorities to the Chief Administrative Officer for the period of July 27th, 2018 to December 4th, 2018 for the period better known as lame duck. Do I have a mover? Councillor Varden, Councillor Ritzman Tenenga. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Okay. Bylaw number 17, 2018, being a bylaw respecting the issuing of licenses within the Township of North Huron. Should let you read it. Archie.
That bylaw number 17, 2018, being a bylaw respecting the issuing of licenses within the Township of North Huron, be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, signed by the Reeve clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book.
Councillor Ritzman Tenenga, Deputy Reeve Campbell. All in favor? Carried. Okay, bylaw number 18, 2018. Being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 113, 2017. Being a bylaw to establish fees and charges for the Township of North Huron.
That bylaw number 18, 2018, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 113, 2017, being a bylaw to establish fees and charges for the Township of North Huron, be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, signed by the Reeve clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book.
Councillor Wadden, Councillor Sype. All in favor? Carried. Bylaw number 19, 2018, being a bylaw to repeal bylaw number 1, 2017, a bylaw to appoint statutory officers to the corporation of the Township of North Huron.
That bylaw number 19, 2018, being a bylaw to repeal bylaw number 1, 2017, a bylaw to appoint statutory officers to the corporation of the Township of North Huron, be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, signed by the Reeve clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book.
Councillor Sype, Deputy Reeve Campbell, all in favor? Carried. Bylaw number 20, 2018, being a bylaw to appoint a municipal weed inspector for the Township of North Huron.
That bylaw number 20, 2018, being a bylaw to appoint a municipal weed inspector for the Township of North Huron, be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, signed by the Reeve clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book.
Councillor Vodden, Councillor Knott, all in favor? Carried. Okay. Bylaw number 21, 2018, being a bylaw to appoint a treasurer for the Township of North Huron.
That bylaw number 22, 2018, being a bylaw to appoint a treasurer for the Township of North Huron, be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, signed by the Reeve clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book.
Councillor Sype, Councillor Hallahan, all in favor? Carried. Bylaw number 22, 2018, being a bylaw to appoint a deputy treasurer for the Township of North Huron.
That bylaw number 22, 2018, being a bylaw to appoint a deputy treasurer for the Township of North Huron, be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, signed by the Reeve clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book.
Councillor Sype, Councillor Knott, all in favor? Carried. Bylaw number 23, 2018, being a bylaw to appoint a lottery licensing officer for the Township of North Huron.
That bylaw number 23, 2018, being a bylaw to appoint lottery licensing officers for the Township of North Huron, be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, signed by the Reeve clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book.
Councillor Vodden, Deputy Reeve Campbell, all in favor? Carried. Bylaw number 24, 2018, being a bylaw to authorize the Reeve clerk to sign on behalf of council a fire dispatch agreement between the corporation of the Township of North Huron and Owen Sound Police Services Board.
That bylaw number 24, 2018, being a bylaw to authorize the Reeve clerk to sign on behalf of council a fire dispatch agreement between the corporation of the Township of North Huron and Owen Sound Police Services Board, be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, signed by the Reeve clerk and be engrossed in the bylaw book.
Councillor Knott and Councillor Hallahan. All in favor? Carried. Bylaw number 25, 2018, being a bylaw to authorize the Reeve clerk to sign on behalf of council a subscription agreement between the Corporation of the Township of North Huron and eScribe Software Limited for eScribe Software Services.
That bylaw number 25, 2018, being a bylaw to authorize the Reeve clerk to sign on behalf of council a subscription agreement between the Corporation of the Township of North Huron and eScribe Software Limited for eScribe Software Services be introduced, read the first, second, third, and final time, signed by the Reeve clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book.
Councillor Ritzman-Ninga and Councillor Vodden. All in favor? Carried. Bylaw number 26, 2018, being a bylaw to appoint a municipal auditor for the Township of North Huron.
That bylaw number 26, 2018, being a bylaw to appoint a municipal auditor for the Township of North Huron, be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, signed by the Reeve clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book.
Councillor Vodden and Deputy Reeve Campbell. All in favor? Carried. Okay. Bylaw number 27, 2018, being a bylaw to appoint a deputy fire chief for administration of the fire department of North Huron.
That bylaw number 27, 2018, being a bylaw to appoint a deputy chief administration for the fire department of North Huron, be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, signed by the Reeve clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book.
Councillor Syke, Deputy Reeve Campbell, all in favor? Carried. Bylaw number 28, 2018, being a bylaw to appoint a deputy fire chief for operations of the fire department of North Huron.
That bylaw number 28, 2018, being a bylaw to appoint a deputy chief of operations for the fire department of North Huron, be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, signed by the Reeve clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book.
Councillor Syke, Councillor Hallahan, all in favor? Carried. That means that 3 for each bylaw is at least 36 signatures. Okay. Is there any announcements or other business? Okay. That has us moving to point 13 on our agenda, the closed session, and the reporting out after that. So motion to go in camera. Councillor Vodden, Councillor Syke, all in favor? Carried. We will have a short recess.